This is the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, and its top speed is 2,200 miles an hour. Also, the SR-71 can fly at altitudes above 80,000 feet. Let's just think about it for a minute. If the Lockheed can go over 2,000 miles an hour, how much curvature should it account for to stay at the same altitude? So again, its top speed, 2,200 miles an hour, and let's just say there's 2,200 miles between point A and point B. That means that there would be 570 miles of curvature drop between the 2 points of reference. That means the Lockheed will be dipping 9.5 miles per minute, or 836 feet per second. Did y'all catch the last part? 836 feet per second. But let's just see what NASA has to think about planes flying over the Earth. This is NASA's document 1207, called Derivation and Definition of a Linear Aircraft Model. Summary: this report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. Wait, what? Flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth, as well as a helicopter, a mathematical model of the CH-53 helicopter. The helicopter equations of motion are given in body axis with respect to a flat, non-rotating Earth. Only one problem with that. Why would they assume any planet, let alone Earth, to be flat and non-rotating? Think about it. And they tell us we live on this ball, spinning, processing through space.
I just want to let you guys know that the people who control this world, they collectively sit down and laugh at how stupid most people are. Now, this unofficial rocket travels 3,200 feet per second. And then we have this NASA rocket that travels apparently 56,000 feet per second. What looks like it's going faster, guys? Like, tell me that. Literally nothing that we observe and see with our own eyes lines up with what NASA tells us, with what the Satanists tell us. None of it. Space is not real. All of our ancestors knew this. They knew that if you go up high enough, you'll hit the firmament. That's why any unofficial launch to space that wasn't by NASA went straight up and hit the firmament. You can't go past the firmament. You can't go to space. There is no space. And the deception is just so blatantly obvious. The only way that people don't see this is if they have a calcified pineal gland because they've been drinking tap water their whole entire lives and they've just been watching the news and believing everything that they're told.
I've already looked into this. You will not be able to see Starlink with your eyes, like you just said, unless they're local.
So so because I have seen them, then they are local.
Correct. Can you see a school bus 350 miles away?
Yeah, it depends.
No, you can't.
Why do we see ships go over the horizon from
a school bus? You can't see a school bus 350 miles away. Do you understand how large of a distance that is? Are you aware of that? Like, like you guys say, flat earthers.
I'm not sure you're aware of how big the Earth is. That's what I keep hearing.
It's 3959 mile radius and 24,901 miles in circumference. I know exactly how big the Earth is claimed to be. You don't. If I asked you that,
you know how we got those measurements?
Yes.
By figuring out the Earth is a globe.
How did you do that?
I don't know. All right, I gotta
go. He just left. He said he doesn't know. Oh my god. That's a clip. I gotta write that down, guys.
Got another question for you guys. So, as you guys know from past videos, I don't believe in space. Now, for everybody that's backing NASA and saying they really went to the moon, right? Let's switch this over to the sun. Okay? So the sun is supposedly 93 million miles away. It's supposed to be way bigger than Earth, all this stuff, right? But it's a ball of fire, gas and fire, right? So if there's no atmosphere and there's no oxygen in space, wait a minute, there's no oxygen in space, so how does the fire stay firing? How is it still on fire? Right? If we're in space, in a vacuum, and there's no oxygen, how is there still fire? And this is one of those, oh, you don't understand it, so it must not be real. No, it's common sense. If I take a fire and I cover it with a bowl or something and cut the oxygen off, it turns off. So why doesn't our sun turn off? Right? So there's a bunch of arguing points that I have to disprove whatever you guys have. So please fill me in the comments and let me know. We'll see who wins this debate.
It's late. Hey guys, it's Berkshire. Everybody say hey. NASA. Hey man, you know they film all that stuff in a Hollywood studio. We really didn't go to the moon. Anyway, folks, I'm tired.
Okay, I'm going to prove to you guys that we live under God's dome with straight up common sense. Now, most of you won't understand this because you lack common sense. Your mind belongs to the government. However, we're still going to try. Now, this is the Gleason's map. This is the real and true map of the Earth. Now, if a dome encompasses our stationary Earth, it would be the highest in the middle, and it lands along Antarctica. By the way, guys, the United Nations logo is the flat Earth map. Now, basic science here. In order to create a rainbow, we need a prism. This is pseudoscience. This works nowhere else but Google. When you spray a hose outside, this is reflecting off the firmament above. Now, check this out. Canada is right here, very close to the center in the highest point of the firmament. Look at how big Canada's rainbows are. Look at the massive arch that we see in Canada. Now, let's move on to Australia. Look at the arch. It is much smaller because it is closer to the edge of the dome. And then we have Antarctica, which encompasses our stationary Earth 360 degrees. Look at the rainbow. This is what you observe in Antarctica. It's very tiny because it is very close to the edge of the firmament. You ever heard of Operation Fishbowl? During the Cold War, the government started launching missiles straight up in the sky to test them. And they called this Operation Fishbowl. What they were really doing was trying to break through the firmament. The Thor missile was also used to lift warheads into near space to conduct high-altitude nuclear explosion tests. These shots were collectively called Operation Fishbowl. It's literally been right in front of your face the whole time. This is a glass bowl, The Shining. Here's the sundogs that we observe when the sun is closest to the firmament. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament show us his handiwork. Psalms 19:1. They know the truth. They laugh in your face because you guys eat up their lies. They hide God's true creation right in front of you, and you all decide to go to Google for your answers. It's time to unlearn and relearn.
There's a secret hiding in plain sight, and it's been there for hundreds of years. Lighthouses. These towering beacons were built to guide ships at sea, but here's the problem. Many of them can be seen from distances that should be impossible on a curved Earth. If we really live on a spinning ball, then the Earth's curvature should hide objects behind the horizon. But time and time again, lighthouses defy the math. Once you see the numbers, you'll realize something isn't adding up. According to mainstream science, Earth curves 8 inches per mile squared. That means that after just 10 miles, an object should be hidden by 66 feet of curvature. After 30 miles, an object should be 600 feet below the horizon. But here's where it all falls apart. The Chicago skyline can be seen from 60 miles away across Lake Michigan. According to the math, the tallest buildings should be buried under over 2,400 feet of curvature, but they're right there, in plain sight. And this isn't just a one-time illusion. Sailors have used lighthouses for centuries, seeing them from distances that should be impossible. Let's look at some examples. The Isle of Wight Lighthouse in England stands 180 feet tall. It can be seen from a distance of 42 miles. But here's the problem. At that distance, it should be 1,000 feet below the curve, and yet sailors can see it clearly. Another example, the Cape Largulas Lighthouse in South Africa. This one stands 95 feet tall, but it's visible from 50 miles away. Do the math and you'll see that it should be hidden under 1,600 feet of curvature. Yet there it is, proving that water doesn't curve. This happens everywhere. From the Statue of Liberty, which is visible from nearly 60 miles away, to the Notre Dame Lighthouse in France, which can be seen from 30 miles out at sea. The mainstream excuse, they claim it's a mirage or refraction, but be honest, do these look like mirages? Are sailors just hallucinating these landmarks, or is the truth much simpler? The Earth is not a spinning ball. If the Earth really curves the way they claim, lighthouses should be impossible. So why can we see them from distances that break the globe model? And why do they keep making excuses? Watch more videos like this, because once you start questioning, the whole system starts to fall apart.
This comes from an account called Flat Earthers Are Delusional. Gravity absolutely exists. It has been measured in countless ways, from dropping objects to incredibly precise experiments with masses and springs, pendulums, and even lasers bouncing between mirrors. It explains why objects fall to the ground, why planets orbit the sun, why the moon orbits the earth, why the tides rise and fall, and why the atmosphere stays bound to the planet. These are repeatable, observable effects that match predictions from the laws of physics every single time. Denial of gravity is not a viable argument because it ignores overwhelming evidence and the consistent results of experiments and observations. All right, let's take this a piece at a time. Let's tear this apart a piece at a time. Yes, gravity absolutely exists. No, it doesn't. Not absolutely. Absolutely not, I would say. It has been measured in countless ways. Nope, what we are measuring is density. We're measuring density. You can put a anvil on a scale and you measure how much the density is. If you put a cup of water, that's the same size as the anvil on the scale, it'll weigh less because the cup of water is less dense than the anvil. Anvil will float on mercury because mercury is more dense, the liquid mercury, because mercury is more dense than an anvil. An anvil is more dense than water. So anvil falls to the bottom of water. A water will sit on an anvil. It doesn't sink into the anvil. Wood will float on water. Air floats on water. Okay, it's all density. It's all density. The air is way less dense than the water is. Water is way less dense than the anvil. Anvil is way less dense than the liquid mercury. All right, so measured in countless ways. It's been measured in countless ways. Dropping objects to incredibly precise experiments. Okay, so dropping objects, why do things go down? There's nothing that's pulling it down. What's happening is the polarity of the atoms, okay? The polarity of the atoms in the atoms themselves, okay? It shifts, okay? And then the polarity of the electrostatics, there's a thing called electrostatics, and it can either go up or it can go down if you can change the electric statics. But the polarity, it sorts. It's a self-sorting mechanism in the atoms themselves. There is no gravity. If there were gravity, then nothing would sort. Okay? As a matter of fact, I would even stand to argue that it's a possibility that if gravity were actually true, atoms, everything would just be a mixture. Everything would mix together because gravity would pull everything down at the same rate, and it doesn't matter how dense it is. It would all just mix together. So incredibly precise experiments with masses and springs. Okay, yeah, masses. He's just talking about them using a scale. You put a mass onto a spring. A spring is a scale, and they've been able to measure that. Pendulums, they swing from side to side, and eventually the pendulum stops. If you just leave it alone, you get it going. Eventually, the pendulum will stop swinging because it loses energy. Okay. That's the reason you can hang a pendulum up, put a bowling ball up to your face, let it swing, and then it will not smack you in the face when it comes back because it lost energy. Let's see here. Okay, springs, pendulums, and even lasers bouncing between mirrors. Lasers bouncing between mirrors. So, yeah, everything will, in the molecules themselves, everything will pull the polarity of the atom itself. It's in the atoms. It's in the molecules. Okay, it will switch to move downwards. It's in the atoms itself. It's not a force that's acting upon it. Okay, bouncing between mirrors. It explains why objects fall to the ground. Okay, why planets orbit the sun. Okay, planets orbiting the sun, moons orbit the earth. Why tides rise and fall. Okay, planets orbit the sun, moons orbit the earth. Okay, they had to invent that. Okay, they had to invent like gravity. They first came up with the idea of planets orbiting the sun. They're like, how do the planets actually stay in their place? Oh, the sun is, and the gravity is pulling on the planets, and the planets are pulling on the sun, and they spin or they circle, or they orbit each other, and the gravity it kind of holds them in place, but it's constantly losing energy also, and where the solar system's constantly spreading out, and we're losing the solar system, and the earth is constantly losing the sun, or the sun is constantly losing the earth, and the earth is constantly losing the moon, and they made up gravity to explain that, so that it would be something that we think, oh, the experts, they figured it all out. You see, that's one thing about being a flat earther. We are alone on this journey. We're alone. And we are left to think for ourselves. That's one of the primary things about being a flat earther. All right, let's move on. Okay, why the moon orbits the earth, why the tides rise and fall. Tides rising and fall has nothing to do with the moon, and the evidence for that they don't teach you. They teach you that the oceans, the tides have to do with the moon. So the oceans are doing this around the earth, depending on where the moon is, and that's where the sun is. The sun pulls on the earth, and the water, and then the sun pulls on the earth and the water, and then the moon pulls on the earth, water, and everything, and the water is eventually doing this, and with the tides, and okay, so and it's that is the official explanation, in a nutshell. And the tides rise and fall. Okay, so what they don't teach you in school is that lakes don't have tides. Rivers don't have tides. Why? Why not? Because the moon isn't actually pulling anything. There is no gravity that's actually pulling on the lakes and rivers, and there's no gravity that's actually pulling on the water either. The tides are actually caused by, and we're, like I said, we're alone, so we don't have anybody to help us figure this out. But there's some mechanism at the center of the earth, in the North Pole, that is pushing water in and out. That's the best we can come up with. There's legends of a spiral of a whirlpool of water that is pushing in the water, pushing in more water, and then it pulls water down into it every 6 hours, and that causes the tides. Let's see here. Let's see. The atmosphere stays bound to the planet. Nope. The atmosphere is not staying bound to the planet. The atmosphere sticks bound to the planet because it has a firmament. That is why it's a container that keeps the atmosphere from escaping. The air, Boyle's gas laws dictate that air pushes out. Air expands to fill the space. So atmosphere pushes out. Okay? atmosphere stays bound to the planet. These are repeatable, observable effects that match predictions from the laws of physics every single time. Denial of gravity is not a viable argument because it ignores overwhelming evidence and consistent results, experiments, and observations. Okay, so that's my answer. I stick by it, all right? Gravity doesn't exist, and, the polarity of the atoms themselves switch. North goes up, the south goes down. The polarity switches, and it's within the atoms, and they self-sort according to each other.
Yeah. It's dedicated to the truth seekers. The ones living below the firmament knowing the deal. It's all good, baby. Check. Yeah. It was all a dream, I used to read NASA tales, Apollo and Artemis, Hollywood veils. Posters on my wall every Saturday night, watching them stage the moon landing in plain sight. I let my tape rock, till my tape pop, smoking herb in the basement, watching CGI flop. Way back when I had the red and black lumberjack, singing through the fraud like a laundry rack. Biggie!
Biggie, 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 can't you see? This Artemis mission trickery.
The Flat Earth map dates back over 1,000 years. This map is credited to being created by a Persian astronomer. His name was Al-Biruni, and he lived between 973 AD to 1048 AD. It's the official map of the United Nations and also the United States Geological Survey. It used to be present in many places before the creation of NASA and the Antarctic Treaty in 1959. Here you see it with Admiral Byrd. This map has been restored by Dmitry from Russia with suggestions of mine, Idialenkar. Known by my YouTube channel Flat Earth Banjo, I asked Dmitry to include the Bermuda Triangle and Point Nemo, a place deep in the Pacific where NASA buries rockets. Then Robert Tozzi, a professional mapmaker, came along and enhanced the map even more. There are many people now selling this map online, but if you could order it from my online store, I would greatly appreciate it. Visit my online store now and order one of the items. I humbly thank you.